Hello and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to answer an age-old question. How much bullshit can be on screen at any given moment in a match of Multiversus? Given that so many of the characters are projectile and item heavy, I'd imagine the answer would be a lot, but before going on about anything, it's important to distinguish what I even mean by bullshit. Basically, it's any item or projectile that a character can spawn in that's non-committal. For example, when Bugs Bunny spawns in his safe, he can walk to the other side of the stage, ignoring it completely, and it will continue to exist on screen. Some characters end up having more of these sorts of items and projectiles than others, and so let's go through the roster and see which one can put the most amount of crap on screen. Even though Shaggy may be the reason this game even exists, he's pretty bad for our purposes. He chucks sandwiches, and can sometimes chuck a really big one during certain circumstances, and that's it. The rest of his moves are melee based. Superman isn't much better. He can freeze people from a distance and shoot lasers out his eyes, but all of his moves are incredibly committal. Sure, he can also freeze projectiles, turning them into blocks of ice to throw around, but by that point you're just replacing a projectile with a projectile. Garnet is able to kind of shoot out rocket fists at people, though that's a committal move considering that the player is able to direct them. She's also capable of firing out a few grenades that land and explode after a period of time, and spawning this kind of star icon that she's able to warp to during a particular input. So overall, I think arguably she's capable of putting 3 things on screen, just one has to be the last one she uses. Raindog is decently projectile heavy. He can shoot up this crystal that then kind of hovers in place and shoots lasers down. He can put fire on the stage using a fireball, and he can shoot out a projectile at enemy players. He can also tether himself using some energy beam to a friendly player, though for reasons I'll get into later, it's best if the game is set up as a free-for-all rather than anything team-based. Still, that's basically 3 things, and none of them particularly committal. Jake has 0 projectiles. He's functionally worthless for this question. Better luck next time, buddy. The Pickle Scientist has quite a lot going for him. He can summon 2 Meeseeks, he can summon this gas that then transforms enemy players or makes himself bigger. During one of his standard attacks, the 3rd time he hits someone, he'll shoot out a rocket. And of course he can summon these portals that he's able to travel through. He also can shoot out a laser gun, but that is, similar to the rocket, a very committal move. Between the Meeseeks, the portals, the rockets, and all that crap, I think Rick can put 6 bullshit items on screen at any given time. Harley's only real asset is a jack-in-the-box that can sit in place. The rest of her moves are either extremely committal, as in nothing lingers while she does something else, or the projectile disappears very quickly. The only thing Stripe has to offer that lasts longer than a few seconds is his buzzsaws, that even then tend to disappear after a quick few seconds. We were doing so well with Rick, and no one else is able to quite carry that over. Wonder Woman has no projectiles. She is functionally worthless for this question. Taz doesn't normally have any attacks that are projectiles or objects that linger on the screen. With a certain perk, if he eats enough other people's projectiles, he can then puke out an anvil which he can chuck at people, but by that point we're once again trading a projectile for a projectile. Steven Universe can actually do quite a bit. He can spawn a platform shield, 2 side shields, and a small melon version of himself that attacks people, as well as this ball of energy that, if an enemy player is caught in the line of fire, will take damage once it explodes. If you play your cards right, you can have 5 separate things on screen at any given moment playing as Steven Universe. Not bad. Morty actually has a bit going for him as well. He can summon grenades, portals, a spaceship, and a piece of Earth out of the ground, as well as use an attack that then splits off into 2 snakes that quickly disappears off screen. It's possible to split the grenade into 2 using the rock spike, but I was unable to achieve that. Theoretically, Morty should be able to have at least 8 things on screen at any given moment, but how well he'd be able to do that, or if he's even capable of doing that, is another question. Realistically, he's more likely to have maybe 6 things on screen given how quickly the rock spike disappears, as well as a UFO.
That's gonna hurt in the morning. Time to use a little strategy. I'm fine. Happens all the time.
Gizmo is able to summon multiple music notes, 2 bundles of popcorn, a tiny car, and a committal bow and arrow. If you assume the music notes are all 1 item, then he can have at least 5 things on screen, and if they're separate items, around 8.
Keep that stabby thing away from me.
Arya can chuck a knife that lingers on a person or the ground, and a pie spawns for a few seconds after she kills someone, and that's about it. Bugs Bunny is pretty ridiculous. He can summon a safe and he can summon a rocket. And it is possible to have 2 rockets on screen at the same time if you time things correctly. He can throw a pie at people that's able to remain in the air on screen for a few seconds, and he's also able to dig a rabbit hole and an exit hole that sits on the screen for several seconds. And in addition to all of that, when he crouches, he's able to pull out a random item, one of them being a Meeseeks box, which allows him to spawn a Meeseeks at a time. So between 2 rockets, 2 holes, a pie, a safe, and a Meeseeks, that's 7 separate things that Bugs Bunny can subject the screen to at any given moment, provided he times things correctly. Black Adam can fire out a projectile that then kind of follows him after a single second of lingering on screen. He can also create an area of effect that deletes projectiles, but you could probably imagine why we wouldn't want to use that for the purpose of this question. Bow before your projectile overlord. She'll pick Batman can summon a Batarang and a smoke bomb, and that's it. These DC Comics reps are really blowing it big time. The Iron Giant in his basic form can't do much. He can plant these metal trees and throw a projectile. But when he's in his super mode, after doing enough damage, he can launch 6 missiles at a time at an enemy player and shoot out 2 of these entrapping green plasma balls. A very situational 8 things on screen.
Hey, tall, dark, and ironclad! I hope you rise!
LeBron James can chuck basketballs at people, and that's it. 2 can be on the screen at once. Velma's projectiles are incredibly committal. She has to be actively using them. She can spill something on the ground, and if she collects enough what's called evidence or clues, she's able to then summon the Mystery Machine Van to kill another player. While more things can be on the screen than some other characters, it's overall not a particularly strong moveset if we want to abuse that as much as possible. Finn can chuck a gemstone that allows him to instantly teleport to it, and it lingers on the ground for a few seconds before disappearing. It's Finn. What do you expect? Of course he's going to suck. Tom and Jerry can't really do that much. They can set a trap on the stage, and Tom can kick a rocket at Jerry, but everything else lasts not even a full second at times, and is extremely committal. It's amusing since projectiles are a big part of using these two characters, it just doesn't work for this challenge, I suppose you can say. For Marvin the Martian, if you have a particular perk added, the UFO will shoot out separate rockets for every player that's locked on using his flag, which is the reason why I think it's best if all the players aren't on the same team. He can use his bubble gun to fire out a projectile that manages to stay on screen for a while, and he can trap his side special attack within it, though it doesn't seem to last particularly long when inside of it. He can also fire 2 shots up in the air before the shots disappear entirely. So, if you're particularly lucky, you can have the flag on screen, 3 separate rockets, the UFO as it waits to fire off those rockets, and 2 shots up in the air, and a slow-moving bubble projectile going left to right. So, very situationally, 8 projectiles on screen, or 8 things on screen.
Okay.
And for that one final push, the stage you should be doing this on should be the court, since a basketball spawns in for free, and if you do it on free-for-all mode, then other items also have the possibility of spawning in. And there you have it. If you want to have the most bullshit on screen at any given moment, you'll want a bunch of gizmos or Iron Giants, Bugs Bunnies, Ricks, or even Marvin the Martians. The easiest way to achieve the most bullshit on screen would be to have a bunch of gizmos, given that their stuff is far less committal and much easier to manage. Though having 4 Bugs Bunnies at once knowing what they're doing can also be a fairly simple way of maximizing the crap on screen. It'll be interesting to see if this changes when the game relaunches. Will a character be added that has even more bullshit possibilities? Will the movesets of existing characters change things? Or will there be a new stage that spawns in even more items for free? Whatever the case ends up being, this was just a fun little thought experiment that I came up with and decided to test out in the lab. Probably not all too valuable in general discussions about the game, but I liked it. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video that gave you something to think about and otherwise entertained you. Take care.